Welcome everybody. We were due for a four-person call this evening. Unfortunately, through technical issues, we're not able to do that, but makes no problem at all. As I'm sure you can all recognise, we have Patrick Janssens and Andy Pelly joining us this evening. Trainer and owner having a particularly good year between them, and I guess the place to start really is with Patrick. Patrick, how many points are you clear at this stage?
Well, it said earlier 184, so.
Not that you counted.
No, there was on the GBGB website. They tweeted it, so that's why I know.
Okay, I've often thought, because you and Mark are good mates, but you are two of the most competitive people I think I've ever come across. I've sort of said in the past, I think you would both sell a relative to get an extra few points in the Trainers' Championship. Is it more fun or less fun because it's you and Mark?
No, I don't think it's more. Well, no, it's not because it's Mark, but the thing is, he's competitive, I'm competitive, and we both like winning things. And, I don't begrudge when he wins something and I get beat. I'm gutted I got beat, but do you know what I mean? But I don't think, it's not that I don't like Mark winning or nothing like that, but you just want to win yourself and you want to do better and improve yourself all the time with your kennel and your dogs and your owners, and that's what you try to do all the time. So now we both, I think, have the same sort of philosophy when it comes to greyhounds.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think that it's great that you're mates, and it's kind of one of those situations. Well, if I don't win, I hope he does. But
Yeah.
I hope I win. That's the kind of the way I see between the pair of you. I was looking here. Obviously, there's still a few competitions to go, and if I have any kind of control of the technology here, which isn't great, I was just going to flash through to Hove for Saturday and see what comes up here. So let me see if I can bring this up. And yeah, so here we go at some stage. And hopefully, can you guys now see the Olympic heat?
Yep.
Yeah. I think Olympic semi-final, I should say. First semi-final, Doomy and Whelan, and obviously the old boy Austin in 6 with Paul Donovan. It couldn't really have worked out any better for Doomy, could it, in there?
No, it couldn't. I thought on Saturday he ran phenomenal well. He didn't break particularly well, but the pace he showed to the bend and his back straight pace was back to the old Doomy we know. Fawn Rebel ran a great race in defeat. I thought one stage going to catch him, but that Doomy seems to keep pulling out more than he was still well in front after the line. And yeah, you know what I mean? He should come forward a bit more this week and then up to the final, hopefully.
Yeah, because I mean, normally Doomy leading doesn't just hold on by half a length, does he?
No, he don't. But Fawn Rebel is a fast dog,
Yeah.
The way he won last week, the trial stake, he beat New and Jacko fair and square, 29.70 on the clock. He done good trials. He done good trials at Nottingham, but then he was a wide run at Nottingham, not the greatest early, so that's probably not why he probably didn't win there or done well, because it's not really suited. Lenton Austin is a fast dog. I used to have him. He sometimes has his own ideas about the game, but he's a fast dog at the end of the day. And, Forrest Allen, he just don't transform Sittingbourne form to Hove. He's not the same dog at Hove, I think, as he at Central Park, and then Lenton Whelan, well, he's an absolute professional in my opinion. He's one of the most cleverest dogs I ever come across in racing. He lacks a yard to the bend. He's so clever around the first 2 bends. He sometimes goes last into a bend and he comes out second. How he does it, I don't know. And from 2 to 3, he's as quick as anything, but he's not the strongest coming home neither. But he's a great, great dog to have at the kennel.
Yeah, he's kind of, I'm saying he's not a dog without a distance, but it's kind of nothing really quite suits him, does it? you know, he's always going to be a bit of a bridesmaid, I think, unfortunately.
I think it's perfect track, really. It's Monmore Green. If you look at him, his record there is very good
Yeah,
because he can tuck him behind. He comes off sort of handy, and then from 2 to 3, he absolutely flies, and he stays that 480 very strong because it's a quick 480. But when you go 515, you know, when he comes up the home straight, he sort of the last 15 meters he's treading water.
yeah,
But listen, he's doing absolutely brilliant. If you look at his runs there, his record, 55 races, 13 wins, 16 seconds. So that's in the first 2, more than 50%. And at the level he runs,
yeah.
and he was a semi-finalist in the Derby. That's an achievement for a little dog like him on his own. So he's a great dog.
Yeah, as I said, he's one of those that kind of goes under the radar a little bit, but he's always thereabouts, isn't he? He's just one of those dogs. And if I remember correctly, I think we're 2 races on to the second semi-final, which I'm sure you'll have a view about. So you've got Tiger in 3, but we're Southwood Jet in 2.
Yeah. Well, Southwood Jet is the favourite to win it. He's a great dog, you know what I mean? So this is a very tough semi-final, you know. But you have to go for Southwood Jet here. Seaglass Tiger, he broke his hook last year. He done well to win the races. He won. He got to the final of the Monmore Gold Cup. How he qualified last week, I don't know, but he was last at the bend and he sort of down the back straight. He absolutely took off, went on the inside of a dog at a third bend, and he finished third. But listen, I think if I'm honest, he'll struggle in this race just on the draw on his own. If he would have been in 1, he probably would have had a squeak. But now, like, Rab's dog is improving with every run. Mark's dog in 5, I thought them very well on Saturday. That Hardy Rebel, he ran well. He only got beat 3 lengths at the end of the day by Southwood Jet, and the one dog Jason Heath that was only got done on the line by Distant Village. So this is a very tough semi-final.
Yeah, it is. It is, but worthy of an Olympic semi-final is kind of what we would expect. And then moving on to the last one, obviously Seaglass Smoky, of your runners, he's obviously the least sort of accomplished. The dog who's still perhaps really up against it.
He is in this race, you know, but he's sort of a thing as well, you know. He's only a September 18. He had 21 races and he only won 3, but he's 7 times second. Again, he's 50%. He's been in the first 2, and his ideal distance, it absolutely took to Crayford. I couldn't believe it really, because I only thought I'd give him a trial, see how he goes. But he ran so well there, and he won the semi-finals there. But in this race again, you know, but then if he gets, listen, I fancy Trap 6 here, if I'm honest. You know, that I thought that ran very well there. Troy Fireburst flew to the bend, stayed on. I didn't think it would stay that well, but I thought it stayed very well. Distant Village from Matt, he's a very good dog round Hove. Nguyen Jacko is a good dog, but he don't win a lot really, but he's always there or thereabouts. And Tiger Boy, he done well, but I don't think he stays really. The 5:15 is a bit far for him.
I'm surprised at Nguyen Jacko. I mean, when he ran at Monmore as a puppy, he looked as though he could really be anything, didn't he? And it hasn't quite worked out for him as you hoped. If you'd have had him as a pup, you'd have thought, you know, the world's your oyster. You'd be a Derby fancy. You'd be anything else. And unfortunately for Ernie, it hasn't really kind of sorted itself out. But I mean, David's dog in 6. I mean, isn't he back? Didn't he have a serious injury early in his career? Didn't he?
No, I think he had. He ran at Yarmouth, and then he got to the final there, and then I can't remember. He went to the Derby, didn't he? We got to the semi-finals, and then he got knocked out, and I think he had kennel sickness, and he come off sore or something.
Yeah.
And then that's only his trials back, I think. At Perry Barry had a couple of trials, but I was very impressed with that dog.
Yes, yeah, of course. So let's remove that. So now, Mr. Pelly, I have a photograph here for you, which, if I can again manage the technology, we just might manage to display here. Hold on a second. Filling around here. Here we go. Share screen, and it's this one. And can we see that one?
Yeah, great memories. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, as you can see from the jacket, it was the Mitch Millwood Marathon final, Goldie's Hotspur. Phenomenal bitch to own. I think 14 major finals, Cat 1s and Cat 2 finals in about 90 runs. Never out of the frame, never knew she was beaten. You always had a chance. Just the dream dog, really, in terms of ownership, and always knowing that it was worth going to watch her because you'd get a run. And yeah, the success was fantastic. I think she won 3 out of the 14, but just going on that journey with her from the beginning was just brilliant. And as you can see in the picture there, good friend, late Pete Vernon.
Yeah, quite a special kennel lad as well.
He loved the dog so much as well. So.
Yeah, I remember you telling me, Patrick, that he had a special affinity with her in particular, didn't he?
Yeah, Pete was he was the same with Desperado Dan, to be honest. Yeah. When he started off, he always loved Dan, and he had the same with used to call Lily. She started off as Slick Satine when Keith also pounded, and we had her toasted, and she was graded, and we fought the world of her. We really did, and it never seemed to happen for us. She was A4, S2. She couldn't win, and I said to Keith, I've got to take it away from here because, you know, they were quite tough on her in the grades there, and because it was a good grade. So I took her for a trial to Romford, and they let me trial on a Tuesday afternoon. I'll never forget it. But the entries had to be in before 12 o'clock. So I entered her in a maiden marathon. So she got in and she trialled around Romford and she done 24:20. Was very good for a marathon runner. So she gets in the race and I really, really fancied her, but she never won a race yet. So I really fancied her. And I said to Keith at the time, got back this. And she was 7-4 and she won 19 3/4. and
you remember those ones?
Yeah, 46:90 she done. She broke 47 seconds on the other side, what was very, very good. There were only a handful of dogs who broke 47 seconds. And then, Keith, due circumstances, had to move on the bitch, and Andy was in the kennel. I said to Andy, you got to buy this bitch because I think she's very, very good and she'd be a TV trophy bitch. But when you looked at her form with one win and all them defeats, it didn't look great. And Andy, he trusted me and he bought the bitch, and she won the TV trophy, Mitch Millward, the Greyhound Star Marathon at Henlow. Yeah. She won loads of things. She won, I think, 500 on the bounce at Romford 750. She was an amazing bitch.
Definitely so. Let me get rid of this just to get everybody back to full screen. I guess, first of all, acknowledgement there to the national treasure, Steve Nash, without whom I couldn't operate, would never have been able to operate. Lovely to see his pictures still. I think Steve's been had a few sort of struggles health-wise just recently, but he just still battles because he's... we won't also mention that he's a Tottenham fan, rather like someone else that's... I mean, just get... What is that thing on your wall, Mr.?
What's the thing behind your ear? Come on.
The glory days. And of course, for anybody who isn't aware, of course, Mr. Janssens is also a major Arsenal fan. I don't know how we allowed Pelly in the kennel, but there you go. We're all going to have that little bit of failing of judgment at some stage. I was going to ask about Goldie's Hotspur. We were, last I heard, you're waiting for it to come in season and hopefully have some pups. Where do we stand on that?
I was still waiting for her to come in season, really, and as soon as she comes in season, she'll be mated.
Yeah.
We're still debating on who to mate it to, but we really like Droopy Sydney, especially because we got Goldie Soddle and Goldie Genoa in the kennel, and they're such genuine greyhounds who run through a brick wall for you, and I see a lot of them dogs do that, especially as you saw this year's Derby winner from Pat Buckley. I thought he was the same. The guts the dog had to get to the front, and when you saw him in his races before he come to England in Shelbourne Park, I think I never see a dog being battered so much as that dog, because all he tried to do was turn left, and every time he do try 4 and 5, and he had terrible draws, and he still has. He not once that dog gave up, and
no,
I really like that stud dog.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing about a dog like him, because when he came on the scene, of course, he was just about unknown unless you were a real Irish form follower, and because he had a very short career, broke his hock, I think I think it was at Cork, and
Yeah.
he's done exceptionally well. And they are invariably the best stud dogs, those that come from nowhere, rather than those that get 150, bitches a year, or
Yeah.
150 litters a year. I was talking to Mr. McNair earlier, and apparently Skate On is due to be mated to him tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's kind of getting on now, and I guess if they end up with more than a couple of 3 pups, they'll be doing quite well. But he said she's in immaculate condition. Apparently, he was telling me today she went over with she has to have 2 custard creams every day. So
Yeah.
when the transporter was given a full pack of custard creams on the instruction, she had to have 2 every day before she came back. So
Yeah.
that's all in hand. I when you eventually have the litter, where will they be reared?
Well, they'd probably be reared at John Mullins. I asked him already, and he would do it.
Yeah,
And then probably, hopefully, we can find somewhere a schooling track where we can school them. That's more the bigger issue, really. But if we'll sort something out near the time, and that's the plan anyway.
yeah, I'm sure. Of course, obviously Bista's always there, but it's just a case of, I guess, of having people been able to take dogs in as well, isn't it? It's not just the schooling; it's the having somebody to actually handle the dogs for maybe the month or 6 weeks that you might be.
Yeah, we probably could do that here, all that sort of stuff. But it's just, when you have to go schooling from here to Bicester, you're talking about a 2.5 hour drive.
Yeah,
and it takes a lot of. It's a day's work just to school. Listen, if Shroffham ever does to open, that's only 20 minutes for me. That would be a great help, because you can do them sort of things down there then. And as long as they chase and they know what they're doing, they can go to Central Park to be graded anyway.
yeah. It's the one thing that I agree. Brad was telling me earlier he's had a couple of pups. Literally, he had a pup this week. First time ever in a starting trap. Did 1680 something round Central Park.
Yeah.
Which is exceptional. But of course, the only downside is with the pups, when they do make mistakes, you've got to hope that the racing managers treat them gently, because they are going to do silly things when they're so young and naive, aren't they?
See, I always think, them good ones, they can handle that. Listen, when we had Goldie's Huddle, Goldie's Ginola, and Goldie's Klinsman, they started in A6, A7, and A5 at Central Park. And Goldie's Ginola, Goldie's Huddle don't stay.
Yeah.
Goldie's Klinsman don't stay, but they still went to A1. They still go to A1, because if you're going to be a certain class, you still should be. I know you're going to get caught, but you still should show that pace. And then I think we took Huddle to Romford. He done a 4 dead section, done 25:10 or something. I thought, Jesus, well, we're going to go with him. And then, so it gradually got better and better and better. And I always find, that pups, they find their own way. They find their own feet, especially the good ones. And always when people say, oh, he's unlucky, I always find it's the same dogs are always unlucky. A good dog makes his own luck.
Yeah.
Westmead Oak was never unlucky. Do you know what I mean? It's always them, and sometimes, see, that was the biggest problem I always find with Goldie's Hotspur as well, She didn't have the greatest track craft. She was so fast, but she didn't have the greatest track craft. But when she got older, she got better. And in the end, it did click. And she did win a lot of things, And at the end of the day, as a trainer, you can look after them. And yes, you have to look after them to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, they got to do it their own way. And you can't teach them how to race. They got to teach themselves.
Very much so. Yeah, I always found that expensive mistakes with puppies is that those who were always unlucky invariably turned out to be bad dogs.
Yeah,
when you made the excuses 3 and 4 times, there was a message in there somewhere,
Yeah.
But
we had Goldie Simsy, he was such a fast dog. He was much faster than Huddle or Ginola or any of them, yeah. And he won, I think, 3 races for us. But he won the Peter Buzzy Memorial, yeah. But he still made hard work of it. Do you know what I mean? He could have won the 5-6 lengths, and he won half a length, I think.
Yeah.
But he was that type of dog, and You know, at the end of the day, dogs are what they are. You can't change them.
Not at all. Now, I want to change tack slightly, because when I was thinking about who was going to be on the program this time, as I said, there's due to be 4 of us, but the other guest will definitely be appearing in due time. But one of the things I wanted to ask Andy about, obviously he's a businessman, been very successful, and it's about the role of the owner in the industry. And I'm not loading any bullets for anybody. I don't want anybody to come back and say, oh, this is having a pop at the industry or the promoters or the GBGB or anybody else. I'm just really looking for some genuine thoughts. Andy, you've owned a lot of dogs. You're successful in business. When you look at the greyhound industry, what is it that you see, and what is it that you'd like to see different?
Well, I suppose from the owner's perspective, you kind of feel that you're appreciated by your trainer. Ultimately, the trainers appreciate having owners. We spend money on dogs, and it's money they don't have to spend on dogs. Otherwise, what are they going to train? And I've got dogs with Hazel Kemp at the moment. I've got dogs with Patrick. I've had dogs with Mark Wallace, and half a dozen other trainers. And I've always had a very good experience with the trainers in terms of feeling valued, in terms of the feedback. Patrick will tell you, during lockdown, he was sending me videos of the dogs in the paddocks and keeping in touch and all those kind of things. He's fantastic from that point of view. Outside of trainers, do you feel valued as an owner? And I suppose the answer is probably not. There's all sorts of challenges, I suppose, at the moment. I don't think we, as a group of owners, we have particularly a voice in terms of trying to improve things. What would we like to improve? I suppose prize money is an easy one. Competitions, those kind of things. And as a sport, when you look at it, I had a period of time working, helping to run a football club, and it was a League One, League Two football club. And so very similar challenges around budgets and a lack of funding. And clearly there's funding, and the industry makes money, but does it filter down through the ranks in terms of trainers and prize money and so on? Perhaps not as it could. So in many respects, I kind of look at it and just say the regulator's done a fantastic job from a welfare perspective. A lot of the stigma around greyhound racing has been overcome by the quality of the work that they've done. Now perhaps it's the time to regulate the commercial side, and I suppose the GBGB recognise that in the appointment of a commercial director. It's very early in his tenure, but you think to yourself, what could they achieve? Wouldn't it be great if there were competitions that were sponsored by national brands that had 4-bend competitions at half a dozen tracks or a dozen tracks and those kind of things? It kind of feels at the moment a lot of the sponsorship is either bookmaker based, or it's really the owners that come to the fore, like Colin Davies stepping up and doing the Oaks, and I know Nick Gill did some puppy competitions and so on. But are they doing that for the love of it, or are they doing that because they see it as a good investment for their business? And you'd have to ask them the answer to that question, but I suspect it's because they're doing it for the love of the sport, and they don't want to see these things not happen. So I think that there's work to be done from a track perspective in making owners more welcome and looking after owners better. And I think that there's work to be done in terms of perhaps at GBGB level, in terms of getting tracks to the standard where you can take a sponsor and run a group of competitions around the country.
Yeah.
And just generally improve the overall outlook, because I think I clearly have a bias towards open racing. That's where my interest is. But without the open racing, do you get the level of breeding? Do you get that level of dogs coming through for the graded racing that the bookmakers and everybody needs to actually sustain the sport? Because it may be that 8% of it is open racing, but I think open racing is a lot more important than 8%, and sometimes it doesn't feel that way to me.
Yes, it's interesting. I mean, one of the observations I would make is that when Mark Moisley was appointed as commercial director or as an appointment at GBGB, my first thought was, well, what's the point? And that's absolutely no reflection on him, because to be truthful, I don't even know the man. But the concern has always been that unless anything was promoter led in this industry, then nobody wanted it, and I get into trouble for daring to say so. I get into trouble for daring to say that the promoters haven't always done a very good job. I think that this is driven, in my view, this is driven by Mark Bird, who can see that apart from anything else, and I've been an observer, a ringside observer of greyhound politics since 1987, so I do know a little bit about it. I don't like to criticise promoters as a group because they vary so much, and some of them contribute massively to the industry. They contribute massively to GBGB in terms of the work that they do. They don't get any kind of respect for it. They always get accused of some sort of agenda or bias or whatever. But the reality is, as a group, they don't contribute. There's the odd individual who contributes a lot. And basically, Mark Bird has said, you know, if we are going to do the things that I think that the industry needs, or this is my perception, and I'm kind of putting myself in his head, but if we're going to do that, the promoters haven't stepped up to the mark so far. So we need to appoint somebody. Well, if you're going to appoint somebody, then give them some money and give them some power, and even give them the clout to say, no, we're not going to do this because it doesn't get past your little group of 3 or 4 promoters who don't approve of it. This is for the betterment of the industry. And if that means that we've got to spend, you know, a little bit of bread on the waters to look further down the line and do things that will benefit us in the long term, then so be it. Because I think there's an awful lot of short-termism in this industry. All of my life in this industry, nobody expects it to last. Promoters look to get their money and disappear. And I say promoters because that's genuinely what's happened. They've kept their tracks, they've flogged off their tracks, they've taken the money and they've gone. Greyhound trainers haven't done it, owners haven't done it, they haven't had the opportunity to do it. So I'm talking too much. If you were in Mark Moyes' position, what kind of things would you have in mind to do? Because I think when we spoke before, you were involved in, was it Spurs shirt sponsored at Watford or somewhere, wasn't it, in the past?
Yeah, so the company, I was marketing director for a finance company, and we took the shirt sponsorship at Watford. So they were in the Championship at the time and went on to the Premier League. So there was that side of negotiating that deal. And then the other side, working at the football club, was the other side where I was the football club searching for sponsors. So having to find sponsors for all sorts of things, shirts and stands and so on and so forth. So sort of understand it from both sides, really. At the moment, I've been to most tracks around the country, watching my dogs, and been in the restaurants and so on and so forth. And I think it's my personal, I speak for myself, my personal experience is that the standard of care towards myself as a patron of those tracks, I've not had a positive customer experience when I've gone. And so if I was Mark, I wouldn't want to be going out to a nationwide brand and saying sponsor competitions at several tracks, and you will come along, we'll look after you, because I don't think they're going to get looked after in a way they would expect to get looked after, and in a way perhaps where they would be looked after in other sports. So I think in the way that they've done a good, the GBGB being that they've done a good job in regulation of welfare, is now the time to regulate perhaps the commercial side. And certainly within football, there's a company called the Fan Experience, and their role is to visit every club twice a season and to provide feedback on every aspect of the fan experience that day, be that from the stewards to the food to just the way they're treated, the whole thing. And the clubs are graded on that and given responsibility to improve if and where they need to improve. And I think that would be a sensible first step, perhaps, if that works for the GBGB, to actually get the tracks, to help get the tracks to where they need to be, so that he can then go out and get the level of sponsorship that the sport needs, looking outside of owners and bookmakers. And as you said earlier, you can generalize around promoters, and it's the same with bookmakers. For every bookmaker that you and I sitting here don't feel put enough into the sport, that there is a bookmaker like Star Sports who are fantastic. And for me, if I wanted to try and have a bet, I would look to go to Star Sports because I want to support somebody who's supporting us.
And of course, GVC, I mean, if you look at what they've done, coming back with the traditional Ladbrokes and Corals tracks, we would be in really deep mire but for the competitions, including obviously the Olympic that we were talking about earlier. I mean, I know that there were some trainers that were really quite belligerent when we returned from COVID, and again, that didn't go down well with certain things because I was quoting them, but there were some promoters that were quite angry that trainers were so uptight. But I think there is a perception, and I'm not saying it to be controversial, I'm just saying it because I believe it. There's a perception that there are certain promoters, racecourse promoters, not all of them by any stretch, certain group who go, do you know what, we're just going to take our bags money or our SIS money, because that's all we really need to continue. Now, that's great in the short term, that's great for the month's bottom line, to say, well, we had X number of meetings at 12 grand a meeting or X number of meetings at whatever figure. But ultimately, that doesn't keep people like you in the game, does it?
No, it doesn't. And, you know, I had 8 dogs, 8 Goldies dogs. You know, I've got shares in other dogs with the IAMSA boys and other people. But I kept 8 dogs through the lockdown, and the kennel bills were substantial for 8 dogs through the lockdown where they're not running. But you come out of lockdown and there wasn't the races, and I'm down to 3 now with Patrick, 3 Goldies dogs, because they're just, in the past, you'd get these young dogs and then they would gradually find their way through the minor opens and work their way through, but there was nothing to work their way through. So unfortunately, we moved, you know, 4 or 5 of them have moved on to other trainers to run top grade at other tracks. And I'm not the only owner like that. If you know, I've been contacted by other owners who've done similar things because they can't justify the ownership of that volume of dogs anymore. So that will have an impact if it's not addressed. But as you said, there are, like with those competitions, Ladbrokes Course and so on, there is work being done to address that for sure.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Sean Parker earlier this week, and he was saying there was nothing for his dogs. He runs at Doncaster, happy to run them there. But anything that goes much beyond a top grade, he starts looking around in the north of England to do anything with those dogs. He can't. So in the end, the owner says, well, I'm sorry, but they're going back to Ireland. And as I said, this isn't provocative stuff. I'm not looking to cause trouble or whatever. It's simply fact. And unless this is where the imbalance of power kind of concerns me a little bit, in that we can have a Mark Moisley or can have a Mark Bird saying to the promoters, guys, you need to be thinking medium and long term. But unless they can make it happen, and quite frankly, they don't have the power beyond the power of persuasion, then I don't see that changing. And that's where I think we need a completely different mindset in the industry, that we need to say, guys, we hope, you know, most of us, some of us haven't got that long left in the industry in terms of our professional lives. Others clearly have, and maybe another 10 or 20 years. And you would need to continue to breed. You would need to continue to produce owners that want to buy these dogs. The other point I would make as well, and it's something that I've already kind of mentioned to Mark Bird and certainly to Mark Moisley, is that we need also to embrace the bookmakers, because I can't see anything other than bad news going forward until we grab hold of a new generation of punters, because you don't find many 20-somethings that want to bet on dogs. We've got some that are of a certain vintage that still bet on dogs, or they go into the local Ladbrokes shop or whatever and they bet on dogs. But we certainly haven't embraced that younger generation, and we can't ask the promoters to do it. They won't do it. We need somebody within GBGB to go, do you know what? We'll go and see what the bookmakers want. We'll produce an app for them if necessary. We'll produce some new bets for them. We will give them a product, a little bit like in Australia, that says you can't help but bet on this because it's an interesting thing to bet on. At the moment, again, rather like the four bags meetings a week, or the 3 SIS meetings a week, the two aren't compatible. Nobody's really interested in looking at the betting future for the industry, and without that, we're finished. You know, because we're not going to get crowds back. No sport is going to get crowds back beyond probably Premier League football.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. If you were to, as you do, go to a dog track on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night and have a look around, that firstly, there's not a lot of people at most of the tracks, even, you know, put COVID to one side for 1 second, and then if you were to look around the demographic of the people that are there, it typically tends to be like the three of us on this call. There's not a lot of younger people there, and so on and so forth. So I think from a betting proposition, totally agree with you. And I think also from a customer experience perspective as well, about making it more attractive and more interesting for younger people to come along. And there's work that the promoters can do with that, because why wouldn't they? They'd like to have more people there and make more money. And there's work that the sport can do, and there's work that the media people that are involved in the sport can do as well to promote that.
Very much so. Now, change of tack again. Patrick,
Yep.
we're near the end of the year. We're not going to talk about Trainers Championship anymore. But I would like to talk, as of this being Monday evening, tomorrow, the last two heats of the Star Sports English Puppy Derby, including a certain Belly Boy who will be running for you. Part of your string for next year. What else you got?
Bogus Melody, she's very good as well. She's a Droopy Sydney bitch out of Ballymacrazzle. She had 3 races for me. She won the maiden final at Central Park. She broke 29 seconds. She had a cough since, a few setbacks with her, but she trialled very well at Toaster. She done 29.77 first time round, and I think she's a very, very good bitch, but is she as good as Belly? I don't think so, because I think he's exceptional. I really do. I never had a dog like him. I said to Graham when he trialled, I said, this dog will beat Doomy. And he went, Graham, he's like, you went absolutely mad. He says, no, why, and this and that. I said, I'm telling you, Graham, this is something else. And he proved it at Central Park, that one race he had. And then, for some reason he went under that rail. I still don't know why, but anyway, he come out that well. He had a trial at Toaster and done 16.08 first time round. Was very good in my opinion, and so he'll have his race tomorrow. Trap 6 is probably not ideal, but he's more middle than he is rails really. So, I would rather see him in 6 than in Trap 1.
It's interesting. I hadn't seen. I saw the result before I watched the video of the race at Central Park in that heats of the maiden, and when I saw him come out the boxes, I thought I was watching the wrong race, because I knew what the result was supposed to be, and I thought, well, this can't be him. This can't be the dog that wins it. And then he got to the second bend, and I don't know. I think all the others stopped. I think he just. I haven't seen pace like that from a puppy in a very, very long time. Not even from Doomy.
No, I don't think Doomy can beat him. I think Doomy will lead him, but I think Doomy will annihilate him coming home. I really do. Yeah. But the thing is, he's a great dog at the kennel. He's, when I watched these races in Ireland and I saw them races, and I rang Graham. I says, you've got to look at this dog, Graham. I says, this is something else in my opinion, because he's running against good dogs and he's only 17 months old, and he's like an A1 dog in an A6, and that's when we bought him. He come over, he done some good trials, and he had that one race and he won, and and he's going to have a second race tomorrow. So he probably be a bit short because he only had one sprint since the incident happened at Central Park, but hopefully we can finish in the first 3, and then he should get better and better, really.
And what else you got for next year?
For next year, I got the bitch then, Bogus Melody, and I got loads of... Listen, all my puppies, yesterday's, there were 4 of them. Lenson Doolin, he's a May 19. He come from Jennifer O'Donnell. He looks a nice dog. He's improving all the time. I got Petty's Blue-Eyed Boy, who's was out at Global Liberty, the same mother as Skillful Sandy. He runs on very strong. Puff the Tiger, he had one race in Ireland. He broke 29 seconds at the Old. He won yesterday, 29.73. He's more a 480 dog than a 500 metre dog. He'd be a good dog for the Mum or Puppy Derby, in my opinion. And then I got Tommy's Fizz.
What was the dog did a very fast run at Romford? Which one was that? Remind me.
That's Buckles John Joe.
John Joe, that was the one I was trying to think.
John Joe, yeah. He's really more 480 dog than a 400 metre dog. But the thing is, he's not really a Central Park 480 dog. He's more like a Mum or Perry Bar type dog. When he's a quick 480, and we're looking with him to go to the Winter Derby and everything. And they're very exceptional puppies. And that Tommy's Fizz, he's a good dog as well. and as you saw last night, Goldie's Greaves, he looks an exceptional stayer. I see him trialling before and he's done exceptional runs, but when you put him in full bend races, he was always one of them unlucky one sort of thing, and never seemed to happen for him. And I said to Andy, we need to step this dog up, and we did last night, and he done a fantastic run really. But yeah, we got loads of young dogs who look exceptional well, and yeah, I think, you know, looking at it now, I think and I definitely think Skillful Sandy will come back. She's in big paddocks. She's running round. She'll be having a hand slip probably in the next 2 weeks. So if she could come back, that's a great asset as well.
That's very quick, isn't it? I mean, what kind of hock injury was it?
It wasn't a hock. It was a wrist.
Oh, a wrist.
Yeah, it was a wrist. Yeah, it was a ligament in the wrist. She's 9 weeks now. She's been going in a big paddock for 2 weeks. She's absolutely flying around, absolutely flying. And yeah, I think she'd be. Listen, it's not the same as at a track. I know that, but there is never known signs from lameness or any soreness or nothing like that. So we're very hopeful with her. And yeah, we still got, you know, Bucko's doing me. He still has another year left in him, I think. You know, we got the Goldies Huddles. They still keep winning every week at Romford on a Friday. So, you know, but they're all coming up to 4 years old. Desperado Danny sort of on his last, you know. But listen, the way he's running, you don't want to retire him, you know. Yeah. So he could have another 6 months in him, and you just hope you find a dog who can take over from them.
Yeah. But
Tulin Princess, she's another one who I really like. She got to the final of this final at the Essex Vars. I think she could be a good Crayford, Romford, sort of strong running full bend bitch. And we've got loads of good young dogs.
She's done some times when she's got a clear run, hasn't she? So far, she's waiting to really be consistently.
Yeah, that's it.
Doing it.
It is. I think the brother is a bit the same. Do you know what I mean? The Glengard Bale dog. When he gets loose, he's quick. But if it don't happen, then you know, it don't happen. You know what I mean? But she broke 29 seconds at Central Park. She done some 33.60s around Crayford. I'm gonna take her to Hove now for some bitches races there. But no, she looks a good bitch.
Yeah. And Andy, the best of the Goldies next year will be?
Next year, I think Greaves. I mean, it's hard not to say Hoddle. His strike rate's phenomenal in opens. His win rate, he's run against some good dogs and won some good things, as you know. But his strike rate's 37%. You know, and he's great round Romford. But as Patrick said, he'd be 4 in April. So if you're looking at next year, I think I would say Goldies Greaves based on his age. You know, he's only just turned 2. And based on, you know, as Patrick's already said, he saw him as a stayer all along, and to see him go around calculated Central Park last night, 39.68 for his first 6 bends, because he's never even trialled over 6 bends. That was, for me, that was impressive. So for next year, I think Goldies Greaves.
Brilliant stuff. Gentlemen, I've taken up most of your Monday evening. Thank you very much for getting involved. I think it's been really interesting. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and we'll call it a day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.